All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Happy New Year. I can't believe we're already a week into 2024. Um, we're going to record today's session. If you can, while we're doing the session, just put your mics on mute. And if you want to chime in at any point, raise your hand or chime in. You can unmute. This is interactive, but we're here today to talk about leveling up your team, positive coaching and feedback. So today's session's all about investing in you. I can't tell you, our intention is that we know how tough it is to be a manager and a leader in modern times. And we know we haven't always done, as an industry or industries, we haven't always done an amazing job of giving you the tools, equipment, knowledge, skills that you need. And so Kathleen and I wanted to invest this time with you. You're investing in time with us. We're so grateful for that. We really want to invest in you as leaders through this session, which Kathleen will overview a little bit more in a second. My name is Jamie Griffin. I'm the founder of Consult to Grow. This is a joint project between me and Kathleen Wood of Kathleen Wood Partners. Been in the restaurant industry for over 20 years. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff. In fact, Devin Biner is on the line, and she's one of the people who interviewed me to work at Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers when they had 9 restaurants. And she didn't fire me immediately or at all, so that's good. I made it 15 years there. I grew with the company to over a few hundred restaurants. And then 7 years ago, I left and I started Consult to Grow, which is a restaurant consulting firm that is exactly focused on the restaurant industry, people leadership, people thought leadership, strategy, and more. And so really excited to be here with Kathleen Wood. Anytime I do anything with Kathleen, it's always a full circle moment. At this point, we don't talk about how long we've known each other, but I will say I've known her since I was 21. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you, Kathleen. And Kathleen, I'd love for you to introduce yourself as we kick off today.
All right. Thanks, Jamie. And I just want to say to everybody, today is National Championship Day in college football, but I already believe that we've won because we've got national champions on this webinar with us today. So thank you all for being here and Happy New Year. And as Jamie says, I've known him since he was 21 and brilliant then and even more brilliant today. But I've also had the pleasure to know Devin at the same time when I met Jamie. So it is great to see Devin here and the great journey together. As Jamie mentioned, I'm the founder of the very cleverly named company, Kathleen Wood Partners. We are a consulting firm that is focused on working with founders and leaders in the areas of accelerating their growth through strategic planning, brand optimization, and leadership development. So being here today is right in the sweet spot of what we do, and also how Jamie and I collaborate on a program that we're going to introduce today called the Leadership Accelerator Program. In addition to that, we also collaborated on an entire series for founders called the Founders Growth Summit. So I'm excited to be here with Jamie today, as well as all of you. So what are we going to talk about today? I think the first thing first is to really talk a little bit about where leadership is as we know it. And this is irrespective of whether or not you're in the restaurant industry or in business in general. But making some sweeping generalizations right now, I want to talk about the decline in leadership development over the last 15 years. And what marks this as significant is that leadership development has been in the decline as you trace it back to the beginning of 2007, 2008. And if you are not familiar with what happened during that time, that was the first time that the United States had had a profound financial blip. And again, in general terms, business had to make decisions, and they made decisions that they would cut, leadership training, they would cut trainers, they would cut investing in leadership development. And then as we toggled our way through, we hit 2012, and again, we hit another financial blip, and more cuts had to be made. This time it was for efficiency purposes. So let's cut out leadership skill training. Let's cut out providing leadership assessments. Let's continue to toggle down on cutting out leadership 360-degree feedback programs. And the promise was, hey, once we get past some of these financial hiccups, we're going to invest in leaders again. So as we came into 2016 and 17, what did we start to see? The impact of technology. And then the answer was, we're going to let technology catch up leadership development. And that was such a great idea until we then ran into, of course, a global pandemic. which changed the trajectory and the landscape of business for everyone. So when we start to think about leadership development, investing in leaders, we know, and it has been verified, that there has been a 15-year decline in the investment in leaders, specifically leadership development. It's actually created a generational void. So now when we need leaders more than ever, we find ourselves with a void in the leadership area. And when you start to think about it, and I think about it from this perspective, I always ask, do we have a labor crisis or do we have a leadership crisis? I tend to align with the idea that we have a leadership crisis that is driving a labor crisis. Because when you really think about it, what team member wants to work with an ill-prepared leader, with a leader that's not qualified to be in their position of leadership, or with someone who is a great person, but doesn't have the tools, doesn't have the resources, or hasn't been developed to lead others? So when you really think about it, even from yourself for just a moment, like what do you expect from a leader? You expect to be inspired, to be motivated. That's going to help you with your development. And yet so often we're seeing that team members are leaving because that's not the experience they're having with their leader. Fun fact, the National Restaurant Association has been tracking the reason why team members leave businesses for over 30 years. And the most fascinating thing about that is in over 30 years, that out of the top 5 reasons for why someone leaves, one of the top 5 is always because of their relationship with their direct supervisor. That fact hasn't changed in over 30 years. It hasn't changed today. So when we start to think about a labor or leadership crisis, I would go with the fact that this void of leadership is what's driving the labor crisis that we're experiencing. And it's compounded then by the complexity of how businesses change and the demands that we're putting on people that are in leadership positions, because we're asking them now to look at things as, hey, you have to learn more about technology. You have to learn about adaptive marketing and dynamic pricing. Hey, you have to get more involved in work readiness. And let's talk about customizing customer experiences through the myriad of loyalty programs and customer data analytics that we have available for that. And let's not forget that the marketplace has become more competitive, that there's 13 different ways to order products from a retail or a restaurant location. And let's just pepper in some government regulations with labor laws, increased in hourly salaries, and all the other things that government can get involved with. And then add just a little bit more to the sauce here with the speed of business and how fast it's moving. And of course, the cost of doing business today. We all know this has been escalated. So now when you take a leader who has not been developed, and now we put him in with a dynamic.
Oh, Kathleen, you'll have to unmute for a second. Sorry. You're on a roll. I apologize for
It's
unmuting.
all good. It's all good. But when we take that leader, right, that undeveloped or underprepared leader, compound them with complexity, now we say to ourselves, what's happening? Why is this so important? And here's the real, for me, this is the whole punchline. The lack of leadership development in all of business is extraordinarily costly right now. First, it's the impact of people. You know, the lack of leaders and leadership role is creating a weak talent pipeline. Our labor costs and turnovers are being accelerated because people don't want to work for the uninspiring. The second part about this is performance. You know, how do you ask an overburdened, underdeveloped person to get out there and drive sales, to execute at the highest possible level? It's not possible. And then add people, performance, and what's the bottom line? Of course, profitability. You know, when we look at this, it's the lack of financial visibility. It's the constant state of putting leaders in a reactive mode. And the net of this is that if you're thinking of growing your business, the most important investment that can be made in your business is in leadership development. Back in the day, it used to be, hey, we should develop supply chain because that's what's going to hurt our business. Oh, no, we need real estate strategy. That's going to hurt our business. The only thing that's going to hurt our business today is the lack of leaders to lead and to drive results in our business. That's why over 2.5 years ago, Jamie and I got together and we created what we've called the Leadership Accelerator Program. In the last 2.5 years, we have put hundreds of managers through this program. And we truly have focused the program on, first and foremost, being culturally aligned to the companies we've been working with. Second, really honing in on leadership, interpersonal skills, and development. And third, providing leaders with critical thinking skills that allow them to be successful, confident, competent, and excited about the role that they play in their organizations. And today, what Jamie and I are most thrilled about is we're going to give you a preview of one of the modules that we offer in our Leadership Accelerator Program curriculum on positive coaching and feedback. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie to take us through this amazing module.
Kathleen, thank you so much for, in 8 minutes, recapping decades of data. I think so much about the new managers and how so many people have been forged in COVID when we were figuring out remote work and the industry figuring out so many things, and there was so much stress and so much burnout. The reality of it is, when clients call me, they're looking for a silver bullet. And I really don't believe in silver bullets. I believe in long-term thinking. I believe in strategy and clarity and all the things we work on day in and day out. But if there was one silver bullet of making our businesses perform better at the people level, at the culture level, at the profit level, it really is giving leaders in our restaurants at all levels the skills they need, the cultural skills they need, the interpersonal skills they need, and the critical skills they need. So thank you so much for sharing that data. I think it's helpful to put things in perspective, because the leaders we're working with may know how to use our point of sale system. They may know how to use our technology and certain things, but they may not know how to drive a culture of engagement. They may not know how to lead their team, how to be visionary, how to be a coach, a leader, a mentor, and all of those things. And so, as Kathleen said, you're going to get a taste of one of our modules. We have excerpted a module called Positive Coaching and Feedback. This module typically lasts about an hour and a half, but at the top of the hour, I said we're going to get you out at the end of the hour. And so we've compressed this a little bit. By the end of the presentation, or later by the end of the day, we're going to give you a couple of things. We're going to send you a recap of the presentation. We'll send you the slides. We'll send you a video so you have it. So you don't have to stress about taking notes. You'll get all of that, and you'll get some ancillary material. So I want you to sit back and relax. I want you to, if you have a question, put it in the chat. If you have a comment, raise your hand. We certainly want this to be interactive, but I'm going to move at a pace that is super respectful of your time. So we're talking about leveling up your team, positive coaching and feedback, and it's one of over a dozen soft skills leaders need to be highly effective. And when I start thinking about this topic, I think about this TED Talk. It's one of my all-time favorite TED Talks. And it's a place where I like to start this particular conversation. And I'm going to share this video. I'm going to share this presentation in a way that's optimized for the video clip. So just give me 1 second. So I'm going to share this TED Talk called On Being Wrong. I want you to just pay attention for 2-3 minutes. I sent a link to the full video. I'll send another link, and think about why I'm showing you this video as we kick off a conversation about positive coaching and feedback.
And that if you can do so, it is the single greatest moral, intellectual, and creative leap you can make. Why do we get stuck in this feeling of being right? One reason actually has to do with the feeling of being wrong. How does it feel emotionally? How does it feel to be wrong? Dreadful. Thumbs down. Embarrassing. Okay, wonderful, great. Dreadful, thumbs down, embarrassing. Thank you. These are great answers. But they're answers to a different question. You guys are answering the question, how does it feel to realize you're wrong? Realizing you're wrong can feel like all of that, and a lot of other things, right? I mean, it can be devastating. It can be revelatory. But just being wrong doesn't feel like anything. I'll give you an analogy. You remember that Looney Tunes cartoon where there's this kind of pathetic coyote who's always chasing and never catching a roadrunner? In pretty much every episode of this cartoon, there's a moment where the coyote is chasing the roadrunner, and the roadrunner runs off a cliff, which is fine. He's a bird. He can fly. But the thing is, the coyote runs off the cliff right after him. And what's funny, at least if you're, 6 years old, is that the coyote's totally fine too. He just keeps running. Right up until the moment that he looks down and realizes that he's in midair. That's when he falls. When we're wrong about something, not when we realize it, but before that, we're like that coyote after he's gone off the cliff and before he looks down. We're already wrong. We're already in trouble. But we feel like we're on solid ground.
I love that video so much because when we're wrong, if we don't know it, it can feel exactly like being right. We are so much more graceful with ourselves than we are with other people. When we're wrong and we find out, we realize it, and we start to feel the feelings you feel sometimes when you find out you're wrong. We're like, oh, I'm a human. I make mistakes. When other people are wrong, sometimes we get really frustrated with them. Like they're doing it in spite of us. Like they don't want to be successful. And sometimes that's true, but oftentimes it's not. And so as we kick off this conversation about feedback, I want you to think about that for a second. As a leader and a coach and a manager, it's our opportunity to give them the awareness and create a choice. It's our job to help them see that if they're roaming around the building thinking they're doing a great job and no one's told them otherwise, then it's our opportunity, right? Our awareness creates the choice. And then once we make them aware, like we've given you the feedback, now let's see what you'll do with it. That's all up to them. But if we never give them the choice, that's on us as leaders, right? The second thing that brings up for me and is a really big thread to giving great feedback is that accountability is caring. When you think about the people who've given you the hardest, toughest feedback in your life, it's usually the people who care about you the most, right? Like they care about you so much, they want to shake you and wake you up and give you feedback and say, if you just did this slightly differently, your situation would be better, right? We need to care about people to give them kind, considerate feedback and allowing them to mess up, allowing them to walk around in our departments and our buildings doing the wrong thing is saying, I don't care enough about you, or I don't think you can do it to be successful. And if that person's on our team, if we were the coach of a team and we let them go in a field, that would also reflect on us. So I want to kick this off by saying, people don't necessarily know they're wrong until you create that awareness. Creating that awareness creates choice, and accountability is caring, right? So we're going to move to our goals for today. 3 goals for the next 40 or so minutes. 1 is to understand 4 different feedback styles. Number 2 is to have a framework for giving quick in the moment feedback. Number 3 is to practice what we've learned. And we're going to do that. We're going to jump right into it. I'm going to start with feedback styles. When I think about feedback styles of managers, I've watched managers a long time. I've had to intervene when things haven't going well for managers. I typically see 4 styles of management. The first style of management is the manager who is letting them figure it out on their own. They're like the silent manager. They're going to give them a lot of slack. Just go and figure it out. That's the best way to learn, right? If anybody has worked for a manager who gives you absolutely no feedback and wants you to figure it out, if you're high potential, high performing, you'll probably find the resources you'll need. You'll probably find what you need in figuring it out, but it's going to take you a really long time. Like it's not really necessary to not give people any feedback. There's a couple of situations where it can be helpful. We'll talk about that in a second, but not the best form. The second is the person who's always negative. I think we've probably worked with a lot of bosses like this. I think there are a lot of leaders who can point out everything you've done wrong. I think in the restaurant industry specifically, we're so good at walking in a restaurant and pointing all the things that everybody's doing wrong and not taking a minute to catch the things that are going right. So there are these managers. The first style is the silent manager. I'm going to let you figure it out. If you can't figure it out, you're not tough enough. The next is, I'm going to tell you everything you're doing wrong. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to catch you doing the right things. And then we have the overly positive manager. They're like, I call them the cheerleading manager, right? Like everything's amazing, everything's awesome. Everybody is like working a shift and wiped out. And they're like, that went great. Like nothing could be better. They just want to be positive. And in a way, I think all of those managers are protecting their feelings, right? A silent manager doesn't want the confrontation. A negative manager is just afraid that somebody above them will come catch them doing something wrong. And they're just in fear of some inadequacy. A positive manager just wants everybody to like them. I would argue, and there's some experiments we could do, that we actually need a combination of these. Sometimes we need people to take a step back. If you're coaching somebody who is highly experienced and knows exactly what they're doing, and you micromanaging them, giving them a ton of feedback is probably going to irritate them, not be helpful. If you only give negative feedback, you're missing the opportunity to step to the side or to be reinforcing in your positive feedback. If you only give positive feedback, then you're missing the moment to reprimand, correct, coach, redirect. So what we want you to do is be specific and provide positive and negative feedback. Think about this as we're on a journey in a car together, right? Like we're going to go, I'm in Dallas, Texas today. It's super rainy here today. Let's say I wanted to go on an adventure to New York City because so many of you are from New York. And my co-pilot never told me when I was making a right or wrong turn. It would take us days if we got to New York City. Or imagine if they only told me, hey, Jamie, this is the wrong turn, but they never reinforced when I was on the right track. We'd probably get to New York. We'd probably like not love each other at the end of it. What we really need on these journeys that people are in their career to high performance, is to get that positive and that negative feedback and to be super specific about it, right? So I started this conversation by saying we need to have grace for people. And I think that can be hard sometimes because we're not sure how to diagnose their underperformance. The reality is it's frustrating when somebody who you're leading is underperforming, but there are 3 reasons that can help us understand the root cause of what's going on. And there are 3 words I love in terms of diagnosing underperformance to fully understand it. One is it skill? Is it will? Or is it a hill? What does that look like? And how does that change the way I provide you feedback? If it's skill, that means there's lack of knowledge, lack of capacity, or lack of development, right? Like the prescription there is to train. If the barrier is, I don't know how to do it, I don't have the information, I'm not capable of, it's our job because we've hired you and invested in you to help you get those skills. Now, if you're unresponsive to training, that is a different conversation. We get to the will conversation, right? The will barrier is, I don't have the will to do it. Sometimes we put disincentives for people, or we lack incentive. Sometimes we tell people we want multiple things and they don't know how to give us multiple things, and they don't know how to tell us they're confused, right? And then sometimes people just don't want to do it. And I'd say on that third category, it's the hardest one, but that's someone who your awareness and helping them understand their will issue is clarity that they probably shouldn't work in the business and that we should help them find a new opportunity somewhere else. And then there are hills. Like when we're managers, there are going to be systems that can get in the way. There's going to be lack of clarity that gets in the way, and there's going to be resources, right? These are real barriers that people can't necessarily control, and we have to get those hills out of the way, or be understanding that the hill is going to help. They're going to need a little bit more time. So when you're facing some kind of underperformance, I would challenge you before you start thinking about the coaching scenario to go, is this skill? Is this will? Or is this a hill? And then diagnose it from there. Once we've done multiple forms of coaching and we've gotten through these things, then we have to start having a conversation about really this very important one at the bottom of will barriers. Is it a lack of desire? And the one thing we can't do is change your desire, right? I can't do it for you. I can tell you what training you need and get you the access to the training, but you've got to show up. And you guys showed up today. It's a great example of people who may not be getting this training in your organization, but come to some resource like this and show that will and that desire. Now, before we get into some frameworks for feedback, I want to give you 4 tips that you should think about as you're giving folks feedback. 4 tips that I've found to be really valuable 20 plus years of being a manager and a coach. The first thing is to be specific, right? Nothing's worse than vague performance. Like, you're not great at that. Well, that's different than you would be better at that if you did X, Y, and Z. right? Part of being specific is also providing positive, negative, and constructive feedback, like making sure the feedback you're doing is helpful. If I don't like your voice and I tell you your voice is terrible, I can't change that. So giving that feedback does absolutely nothing for me. So we want to make sure we're specific and constructive in our feedback. This is a big one. We want to be timely in our feedback. We want to deliver it as close to performance as reasonable. Memories are fallible. The moment is fallible. Like we will misinterpret or misremember events if we don't document them or have a conversation as quickly as possible. There's one exception to that. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But generally, the closer you can provide feedback to the performance, the better it's going to be for you and for the person getting the coaching and feedback. Number 3 is to be fair and don't play favorites. This is something we see undermine managers and leaders all the time. They sort of get exhausted with someone and then suddenly they start nitpicking everything they do and they're not being fair. They're not holding the same standard for everyone across the board. And then your coaching gets muddled with you're playing favorites or you're not being fair. And so as a leader, we really need you to be fair and to not play favorites. You know, if it's the standard for the best people, it's the standard for everybody. It's the standard for everybody on your team. And then finally, and this is one of my favorite things, I think we've got to use feed forward. We've got to focus on the future. I think all too often we want to change what happened. And unfortunately, in the life and world we live in, there is no changing what happened. I cannot go back and redo it. But what I can do is use that thing as an example for the future, right? So if I want to coach you on attendance, the fact that you're tardy or you're missing days is not the thing I'm going to change. It's going to be that your desire to show up on time. And so I've got to focus on the future. I've got to say, this is why. I mean, like, hey, if you show up on time, you can continue to grow and develop. If you can't, you will lose your opportunity to work here. That's not me being callous. That's me just telling you the truth about what will happen in the future based on repetition of the behavior. So focus on the future. Like, don't try to live in the past. You cannot change it, right? So we've got a really good basis. We now know that awareness creates choice. We now know that we need to give people positive, negative, constructive feedback, that we need to be specific. It needs to be timely. We need to know all of these things. But how do we do it? Like, what is the best practice to giving feedback? And how long does it have to take, right? So we're going to talk about a feedback framework. And as we talk about this, I want to share one of the best lessons I've ever learned in being a leader. And that's the thing, this lesson from General David Morrison, which is that the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. If I'm willing to walk past something being done wrong, and I don't say anything, then I really have reinforced that that's okay. The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. So urgency is key here. The other thing I love, it's not here in the slides, but is that I want you to be tough on the standard and easy on the person. Giving feedback is not about tearing somebody apart, even if it's constructive. Giving feedback is about saying, I believe that you want to do this right. I believe that you want to be proud of your work. And so I'm going to give you guidance as your leader, as your manager, as your boss to make sure you do a great job. Right? We want to be easy on the human and tough on the standard. And we want to fairly enforce those standards across the board. All right. What does this look like? I'm going to use 1 Minute Praise and Reprimand. I love this book. I have multiple copies of this book on my desk at all times. It is the new 1 Minute Manager. It breaks this down into steps that positive praise and reprimands can be done in 1 minute flat. Now, look, we're going to go through like 5 and 8 steps. On the 1 minute praise, it's 5 steps. On the 1 minute reprimand, it's 8 steps. Those steps are a framework. Use them to the extent they are useful. If you're working with another manager who's struggling, this is a great way to practice praise and reprimand, right? Do I, as a coach, follow these 5 steps religiously? No, but they're a great framework as we're thinking about praise. And each of these steps, Ken Blanchard has sold millions of these books and probably trained millions of people. I mean, literally probably has training sessions with 50, 60,000 people at this point in arenas. He's put a lot of thought into it, and he agrees with Kathleen and I that one of the biggest opportunities we have is to build the skills of leaders in America and beyond. So what is 1 minute praise, and what are the steps to reinforce it? Number one is to praise people immediately. So this goes back to being time bound. Number two is to be specific about what they did right. We want to tell them exactly what they did right. We want to be specific about it. We want to be clear. And then we want to stop for a moment of silence and let them feel how good you feel about their performance, right? Let it sink in for a second before you encourage them to do more of the same. And then you shake hands or touch people in a way that makes it clear that you support their success, right? I think we miss this. I think it's crazy to say, but I think we can do more of catching people doing the right thing. When I worked at Raising Cane's, we were ferocious about pointing out what you got wrong. We're really good at it. And Devin, you may remember this. We created a challenge coin program. Like we knew it was such an issue. We knew it was such an issue that we gave ourselves a reason. We gave ourselves a reason to go out into the field and catch people doing the right thing. And I remember going to a restaurant in Houston, and I saw an order on the whiteboard in the office, and it was a specific order. I can't remember the specific order today, but typically when there was an order written on the whiteboard, it meant we got it wrong, and a customer was going to come back through, and we were going to remake it for them. And so, I'm doing field visits, checking in on this restaurant. I'm like, well, tell me about that order. Like, I'm so curious, thinking, aha, got you. I'm going to catch you doing something wrong. And the manager was like, oh, that's Steven's customer. And I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, well, like that customer has Alzheimer's. And he forgets what he needs when he comes to the restaurant sometimes. And so Steven has made it clear to everyone who works the front counter that when they see this make and model of car, or when they see this man, that this is his order, and us helping him get it right is what allows him to keep coming back, because it's one of the few things he can still do. If we hadn't had the challenge coin program, I probably would not have celebrated that as much as it needed to be celebrated. And we ultimately, in addition to telling that story, we brought that operator in to celebrate them among all of their peers when we had a manager-wide meeting. I think this sounds simple, but having it be a habit for you is really profoundly important. All people want to feel proud of the work they're doing. And a way to help them feel that pride is to provide them reasons to be proud. It's to provide them praise. And it only needs to take a minute. Okay? So when we do the 1 minute reprimand, as we shift gears, there are times where people lack the skill, they lack the will, there's a hill, and we need to correct negative behavior because our businesses they need that feedback to do well at their job. We need that, give them that feedback to make sure the team is performing, right? So this is a little bit more extended, but again, use it as a framework. Step number one is to reprimand immediately. Like I said earlier, we want it to be timely. The only time I don't want you to reprimand immediately is when you need a cooling off period. Like when you're raging, when you're like, there's curse words in your head about how you're going to coach this person. And you just, I experienced this actually with babysitting my nephew of all things. I had two nephews. They were like 3 and 5. And one was running for a power outlet and one was like skydiving off my couch. And I couldn't figure out who to save. And I was so angry with them because I wanted to protect them. But like raging at these kids is not the right solution. Nor is like raging at your people. When you're experiencing rage, this is one of the most important things. You have to imagine when you're so frustrated, you want something to be different. You want the performance of that person to be different. Your brain is like a flurry of electrons and you can't think clearly. And you probably aren't going to say things that are helpful necessarily. You're certainly going to risk not being professional. So I went to this school here in Dallas that helps kids with trauma, and they have snow globes everywhere. And I'm like, why are there snow globes everywhere? And they're like, oh, the snow globes are how we help the kids understand they need to calm down. And they're like, we make them, when they're really frustrated, we're like, you can't make good choices right now. You're probably not going to say something you're proud of. So shake the snow globe up and watch it settle and give your brain time to settle. And even as a 42-year-old adult, I have a snow globe mentally where I'm like, I just need to calm down for a second. So we want you to give this feedback as close to the performance as possible. It'll have the best, highest impact for you. But if you need time to cool down, or if you need time to talk to HR because this thing is super complicated, or you're implied as somebody who's causing the issue, then take a break, reach out to somebody in your human resources team. If you are the human resources team, make sure people are reaching out to you and they feel like you are available to them. Number two, same step as previous, tell people exactly and specifically what they did wrong. Be willing to have a conversation, be willing to seek to understand. You want it to be really, really clear, and you want there to be some agreement that this is a problem. And then you want to tell people how you feel about what they did wrong, right? They have to understand, again, if we're being tough on the standard and easy on the people, they have to understand that their behavior impacts the people around them, including you, may impact their team members. And if they don't understand this is about their impact on the business or other people, that you were trying to be tough on the standard but easy on the person, they may miss the point, right? And then we're going to do the same. We're going to stop for a moment of uncomfortable silence. Let them feel how you feel. A long pause gives people time to process what's happening and catch up a little bit. I love the device of a long pause. I do not think that's a step you should skip. Then I want you to shake hands with them and let them know you are honestly on their side. You wouldn't be telling them if you didn't care about them, right? Accountability is caring, but truly care about them. If you don't care about them, that says more about you than it says about them. And then remind you how much you value them. They're still so important to your team. You cannot have them turn off on you. You can't have them check out of a shift or, a day or a project. They're still really important. If they had done something so offensive, you'd probably be chatting with HR and you'd be having a whole different conversation. And there are some things that rise to that level, but you want to remind people how much you value them. You want to reaffirm that you think well about them and not of their performance in this situation. So we're going to isolate the person from the performance. We're going to focus like so clearly on what we missed the point on. And then we're going to realize when we've reprimanded something, it's over, right? It's over. Unless they do it again, then we probably should write them up in a redirected process. But otherwise, forget it. It's done. It's in the past. We need to focus on the future. A couple of things that actually happen in reality instead of this 8-step process is we hold on to it. Like we don't say anything. We start collecting it. And it's like a Peanuts character collecting all the garbage, right? Like you just get a pile of garbage and then you unload on the person and they can't really do anything about it and they don't remember it the way you remember it. That's not what we want you to do at all. We don't want you to collect that stuff. When we do coaching conversations and performance reviews, that's not the time to revisit all the stuff that happened over the last review period, whether it be a few months or the 12 months. I hope you're having coaching conversations more often. But reprimands are for in the moment feedback. Those performance reviews, much like most feedback, need to be very forward focused. Like we need to write the next review period and talk about, oh, here's some behavior that popped up over the last review period that will keep you from achieving your goals. One of them could be just like having a solid job, right? Another could be, I want to grow and be a leader. Okay, well, if you can't show up on time, you're not setting an example. I need you to set the example with your time and attendance and professionalism over the next 3 months to get to your goal of being considered for promotion. So this is how we like live in the future. So here's what we're going to do. I've covered a lot of ground. I'm going to leave some time for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. I'm going to give you an example of 1 minute praise in action and then a 1 minute reprimand in action. And then I'm going to ask, actually, I'll have somebody read this if we're okay with that. Then I'm going to ask for 2 people to help me practice. So who would like to help me read an example of positive praise? Look at this. Everybody's so quiet.
Jamie, I got you.
Blaine, thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to throw this out for you, Blaine. I'll let you read it with as much charisma as you can muster.
Yes, Simon, awesome effort on table 32. I heard you sell 5 desserts, all with coffee, which is great because it's White Rhino coffee. It's
Yeah.
that type of service that makes us raving fans, and we all know that they will go home raving about chef's homemade delights. Great effort, Simon. By the way, keep it up. That's exactly what I want to see more of.
Blaine, or you should
Blaine,
be an actor. I mean, why,
Blaine,
why?
serious.
Everybody look up
Wow.
White Rhino coffee. It's delicious. Very, very good coffee. And do you guys ship all across the country, Blaine?
Sure do.
Wow. Way to go, Blaine.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So Blaine, what do you like about the 1 minute praise? What when you reflect on 1 minute praise and what you just read, what resonates with you as an operational leader?
Yeah. I think what stands out first and foremost is it's compact. And because it's so compact, it's easy. It's it was less than 1 minute. I know it's called the 1 minute manager, but I think it took me 25 seconds. Um, Feels good to give positive reinforcement. It also reinforces to me that now Simon's name stands out in my mind. So if this happens again, probably remembering, golly, I've been talking about or to Simon an awful lot, and when he applies for a promotion, I'm more apt to do that. So there's several great benefits, but just the ease and the compactness of it is really good.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, Blaine. I really appreciate that.
Yep.
All right. Who else would like to volunteer to read a sample reprimand? Simon doesn't always get it right. Billy, you're at the top of my screen and your camera's on. Could I volunteer you? Billy, are you turning beet red? If you want to you want to escape this, you can.
Sure, let's do it.
You're the
Oh,
best,
boy.
Billy. Thank you for letting me voluntold you.
Okay, Simon, I'm disappointed. You just left table 45 without offering them dessert and coffee as we agreed to do. That's not offering first class service. I know you can do better than that. I have heard you offering dessert and coffee to the other tables. Please lift your game to the standard I know you are capable of delivering. I want you to spend the rest of the shift listening to you, turning customers into raving fans, not delivering underwhelming service.
Love it, Billy. Thank you. I want to be wherever you are, by the way. This place looks amazing, Billy. Billy is has been an amazing manager and is now in HR for a portfolio restaurant company in New York. Billy, what do you think about the 1 minute reprimand? Having been a manager and working now with restaurant managers across Manhattan, do you think that's something managers can pull off?
I think so. I think the most important thing about this, though, is the location of where you're giving the reprimand, because you still
Mm,
want it to be private, right? This obviously, it sounds like something that you're not necessarily pulling an employee into the office for, but away from their guests, because the last thing we want is for them to feel embarrassed in front of their guests that they're taking care of, and then also away from their peers, because at the same time we want to reprimand them, we don't want to embarrass them or make them feel less than a comparison to the rest of their team.
I love it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the statement I always think about, Billy, when you say that is, praise in public and reprimand in private. Generally, yeah, unless somebody's really introverted. But if they're really introverted, they're probably not on the floor of a restaurant. So generally we can praise in public. And when we reprimand people, we want to bring them to a place that's private, or we want to say it in such a way that is private. Because you're only taking a minute here, you could do it on the floor if you pulled them to the side and you were in a quiet corner, depending on the busyness of the restaurant. But if it got into a longer conversation, that would be a little bit different. Now look, we're at 2:45. We have a couple of other things to take care of, and I want to make sure we have time for an open forum. So we were going to practice with you, but I'm gonna punt that. You're going to get these sample scenarios and you can practice them. I'll give you the sample scenario so you can see them as soon as my computer agrees that we can do that. All right. So the two sample scenarios to think about is practice. And I think practice is really important to create pathways in our brain, right? Like it's easy to say, yeah, I got it. It's a whole different thing for your brain to go through these 5 or 8 steps and process them and practice them. So if you take this information and you share it with other managers, and we really do hope you do, our intention is to help managers get the soft skills they need to be high performers. I would practice with them, right? The first scenario I give you is Emma successfully diffused a situation with a customer who was upset about his or her incorrect order. You know, it's something that happens all the time, but the more folks hear that, like, yeah, you are empowered to do that. Follow the steps we have for customer service and do that more often. Love that, right? And then a very common issue is people showing up late, right? Oh, and 7 minutes late for a shift and is not in proper uniform. Typically, what I see on these reprimands, and everybody in operations leadership and HR leadership will agree, is like, if I really like that person, I probably don't say much, but that's walking past the standard and approving it and saying it's okay for every single person. And if there's something that I am really frustrated about, then I will just come down on this person. So in this particular example, we really want to like immediately provide that feedback, and in some cases send people home to get in the right uniform. There are other things we could be doing, but we want to give them that. We want to give that feedback across the board. We want to hold an equal standard and practice that. So Blaine, Billy, thank you so much for volunteering and giving my voice a bit of a rest. A couple of next steps and then an open forum before we do a wrap up here. So a couple of things. It takes, Kathleen, how long does it take to create a habit?
Beautiful 30 days, Jamie Griffin.
Yeah. So if we want people to absorb the skill of coaching and feedback, we can't say, here's the information and then never revisit again, right? Like we need them to build those muscles to do praising, reprimand, provide specific feedback, be specific, be timely, all the things we're talking about. And we really want to stick with it. If we let this sit, if we don't practice it, we're going to lose the habit. If the people we're coaching on coaching and feedback don't create the habit and we move on to a new thing, they will think it's okay for them to move on too. So the first thing I'd say is all of these things take time to build muscle around. If you're a brand new manager, I think it takes more time. If you've been at the game for a long time, you may not need this skill, or you just may need some tweaks. I would hope you can learn this a little quicker. Number two is I hope you guys practice 1-minute praises wherever you are and whatever level of the organization. I cannot tell you how much positive energy you will create by going around your organization and catching people do the right thing. It creates pride. It creates positive energy. One of the examples we'll use in live training is that we'll have people stand up and introduce themselves to other people as though they don't care about them. And they just kind of go around, they're like, hey, I'm Jamie, whatever. It's just a rustle of like meaningless transactions. And then we'll have people walk around and say, introduce yourself like these are the most important people in the world. And you hear the room slow down and you hear people making meaningful connections and really create positive energy. And the whole tone of the room changes, right? So that's what I want for you guys. I want you to go in and genuinely and sincerely find reasons to praise people and put positive energy into your organizations. Then, of course, the standard we walk past is the standard we accept. We're not going to walk past anything that isn't at the standard that we're setting for our business. When you think about some of the most high-performing businesses out there, they are super high on accountability. And usually those businesses have a lot of pride because they're delivering something in a way that makes everybody proud. And you can be assured that there are lots of reprimands and coaching and feedback and training. They're figuring out, is it skill, will, or a hill, and they're overcoming those things. So those are the next steps. We're going to do an open forum, and then Kathleen's going to do a wrap up. I'm going to stop sharing the slides for a second. Anybody have questions, comments? There's so much wisdom on this call. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you're like, oh my God, if I was a manager learning about coaching and feedback, this is something we should talk about? We have a few minutes. We'll make that time.
Hey, Jamie, Happy New Year. It's Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Sorry I'm not on camera. I'm a little under the weather and look absolutely horrendous. So
I hope you feel better soon, Tim.
thank you. Thank you very much, both you and Kathleen, for putting this on. I think these are some just excellent reminders for, anyone, not just in hospitality, but just in leadership in general. One thing that just wanted to add, if I could, is that I think one of the greatest superpowers a leader can have is being able to lead with empathy and being able to understand, excuse me, that before getting to those praises and before getting to those, 1-minute reprimands and things like that, setting expectations up front with, not only just generic expectations, but also with just great training, things like that, I think makes this process so much easier, especially in the long run. So just thought I'd throw that out there with everybody. But thanks
Yeah,
again
I
for your
love that.
time.
I love that in two ways. And Tim, I hope you feel better. Tim is an amazing operator in Denver for BJ's Brew House. Um, Two things stand out. One, I think a good leader tells people to expect a lot of feedback. I don't think like it should surprise people that they're getting feedback, and they need to show empathy in that feedback. The second is when we get into some of the more challenging, when we do this training in the Leadership Accelerator program, body odor, physical image, complicated topics, homelessness or being unhomed comes up a lot. And you can't, I mean, the 5 steps need to get a little bit adjusted to seek to understand and diagnose what's leading to that, right? And so you've got to, in all aspects of leadership, we've got to recognize whether we like it or not, we're in relationship with the people that are on our team. And empathy is empathy and communication and trust building are core skills to being the best leader you can be. If I don't care about the person, they won't care about the feedback I have for them. So I love that. Who else? Anything, other questions or great insights like Tim just offered?
Hey, Jamie, it's Lori.
Hey,
Sorry,
Lori.
I've got the crud as well today.
It's
So
going
like,
around.
yeah, it's going around. I just wanted to add, how important it is to what you guys are talking about to build a culture of feedback and coaching. Because I've always said the performance review should never be a surprise. It should just be another conversation. So I really feel, like you said, set it up that if you're an employee and I'm your leader, you're going to get feedback from me and I would love feedback from you at the same time. So it's always a conversation.
Love it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. When I think about performance reviews, first of all, I really like them to be forward-looking, feed forward coaching conversations. I always say, like, how would that, if you inflicted that process on somebody you deeply care about, like if my partner got sat down at a Starbucks and I downloaded them on all the things they did that annoyed me, and I didn't invite them to give me any feedback, and I was like, hey, this is just a conversation about how you can be a better partner to me, we probably would not be in relationship for much longer. So we want to like use that as a test. Like we want to be fair in those conversations, and we want them being about two-way communication that builds our relationship and adds some credibility. I think we have time for, oh, Michael, I feel there are times when a newer manager is hesitant to provide those 1-minute reprimands for fear of being disliked. The reality is that the team members value and want oh, Michael, this is so important. Yeah, the reality is that people want the feedback. That the foundation of being a leader is in intentional 1-minute moments, right? You can't like dole them out and not really care or them be meaningless. But at the end of the day, people want to be proud of their work and they want your feedback. I think another way to think about what Michael's saying in the chat, right? So Michael just said, new managers don't want to provide feedback because they want to be liked is like, for how long can you be liked as a manager if you don't give anyone feedback? It's just a very short-term strategy. They may like you for a little while because you're not pointing things out, but then pretty soon, like the whole ship is going to get off course and they're not going to blame the other people who are getting it wrong. They're going to blame the leader who doesn't have the will to say, I care about you all enough that I want you to have a place you can be proud of. And I'm going to give you honest, constructive, specific feedback to get you where you want to be. I love that. I think that's such an excellent point. All right, we could have this conversation for probably about 2 hours once we got you guys going. But I'm going to jump back into the slides and I'm going to hand out things over to Kathleen and she's going to take us home on our conversation here.
So first, I just want to begin where I'm going to bring it home where I started. One, it is great to have all of you on this webinar today because you really are the leaders that are shaping the leaders of the future and the leaders that we need today. And Jamie, thank you so much for your passion and your commitment and the interactivity of positive coaching and feedback. You know, one of the interesting things I think about Ken Blanchard and why he was brilliant, and Jimmy, you did a profound job presenting this too, is when you think of how many minutes are in a week, there's over 10,000 minutes in a week. And if it takes 30 days to create a habit, we have 40,000 minutes in a month to figure out how to praise and how to reprimand. So I just want to put that in perspective. If you're a new manager, if you're a leader, if you're an executive, we all get busy. We all get a lot thrown at us. We all get a lot coming at us. And as we've been doing the Leadership Accelerator program, we hear this from managers all the time. Look, we're busy. We're get caught up in the action. We get all that. And we're like, we totally understand that. But as Jamie mentioned, when we create awareness, we can create choice and we can create change. And I think that's one of the most amazing things. 40,000 minutes a month. How many of those minutes are meant for praise? How many of those are meant for feedback that will help people be better? And I think that that kind of speaks to the approach that we take with the Leadership Accelerator program. And I just want to opinion on this for a moment to give you an overview of what we're specifically talking about. You know, the Leadership Accelerator program is a customized leadership. We've developed a customized leadership curriculum for the businesses, the companies, and the individuals that we're working with. It is exactly what you experience today on the smaller level of interactive, facilitated monthly programs that are all truly performance-driven and results-oriented. We designed this program for operators, by operators, to help all operators and businesses develop a pipeline of leadership. There's three key components of the Leadership Accelerator program. The first one is really, what is it? And Jamie and I have spent years pulling together the best practices for leadership development from our backgrounds, our experiences, and the best practices of others to really offer a 6 or a 12-month program with customized leadership curriculum that's been culturally aligned to the businesses and the individuals we're working with. And we provide all the tools and the resources. In fact, what we develop is a completely customized library of leadership development specifically for a business or an individual. The other thing is that every month we offer a series of facilitated interactive sessions, much of what you experience today. Some of it includes we start with an educational workshop, usually about 90 minutes. It's got pre and post activities that have to get done. We schedule a team mastermind to really talk about, did you understand it? Do you understand how it benefits you? Do you understand how to apply it? And then we bring in a third component, which are coaching calls. And in those coaching calls, we are asking for specific demonstration of the skills, the knowledge, or the experiences that we've set up with that particular workshop. All of it includes follow-up activities, whether those be tools that we provide, worksheets that we provide, but ways to help support the retention of the knowledge and the application of the skills as people are going through the program. And the other part about it is that no investment is an investment if you can't measure what the metrics are that go with it. So we set baseline metrics at the beginning. We measure those as we go through the program. We do surveys where we're asking for quantitative and qualitative feedback. We're also asking for feedback, real life feedback in sessions so that we are adjusting, modifying, and ensuring that what we're presenting and what we're discussing is truly going to have the impact that we're all looking for. And the amazing thing about it is with this care, attention, and commitment for collaboration by everyone, we've achieved amazing results. Some of these results are, if you start to think about it, first are the development of high-performing teams. We know that people have been promoted. We know that people have been put in line for additional responsibilities. And we know that people have had their roles expanded because their competencies and capabilities have been expanded. We also know that engagement goes to a whole new level of success. In fact, many of the managers and leaders that have gone through the program have been called out by their colleagues to come and present the information at their district, at their regional place, or at their location, because they're hearing about the amazing benefits people are receiving from the program. The more practical side of the program is this. We know for a fact, we've measured it, that retention of management is improved, hourly turnover is reduced. We also know that operational performance is achieved with new levels of success in sales, in scores for operational excellence, in standards, and overall customer service. We've seen this time and time again, and it's been with the most diverse group of people that you could put together, really representing the industry as a whole. And the last and probably most important thing is, for companies like all of you that you're a part of, that you're a growing company, that you're an organization that's already doing the best of the best, this is an amazing conduit to accelerate the best practices that are already in play, or to assist in accelerating where you want to be in the future. One of the things that Jamie and I are most excited about is we really do believe that leaders are the future of our industry today, but they are the pipeline for all of our success in the future. So if you're looking, as Jamie mentioned, we are going to send out a lot of feedback from today. We'll even include a brochure about the Leadership Accelerator program. But if you're looking for yourself, if you're looking for your business, if you're looking for your company, we are more than happy to have the conversation with you about how we can support you in being the absolute best that you want to continue to be. Here's our contact information. Please feel free to contact us. And again, on behalf of Jamie and myself, we truly do want to give you some amazing feedback by saying thank you so much for being the leaders you are. Thank you for doing what you're doing every day to make our industry better. And thank you so much for investing your time with us today. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have an amazing 2024.